To week 6 in one of 102. Uh, you've made it through the entire course. Congratulations. Just a few more things to do to finish up, and then you'll be getting your grades within a week or less. And then you will be on your way to the next course. I hope you've had a decent course. If you've had any questions that you didn't think got answered during it, you can always contact me. For this week, we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to finish up the argumentation essay, and we're also going to show that you have learned something by you're going to revise a couple essays and you're going to do what's called demonstration learning, which is put together real quick a slideshow as if you're about going to do a presentation in front of a class using that slideshow. So those are the main tasks ahead of you this course. So let's get to it real fast. The readings were just 2 readings about oral presentations and proposals. I want to make certain you saw these just so we could round everything out. They're relatively short chapters, oral presentations being the most relevant to this week's work. One thing about these kinds of presentations is they're very common in business practice. You should have all seen or done a few of these yourself by now. But a lot of people will just say, okay, you need to give me a presentation and don't give you keys or cues on how to do things. So one thing to be aware of is it is a process of writing just like anything else we do. And the better written, the better prepared you are, the better the presentation is. That doesn't mean read off a list. As a matter of fact, reading a straight from a list or a script is one of the worst ways to go about a presentation. But it means you know what you're talking about. You've done the work, you've done the research, you've put together the slideshow, you have a list of topics to refer to if you need to. And that means that you are enough of an expert that you can riff on it. Sort of like when I'm describing things to you in these videos, I'm not reading carefully what's going on the screen. I'm looking at them, having read this before and having taught this before. I can give you ideas and examples of what you should be looking at, how you should focus, and that sort of thing. The worst thing you want to do with any kind of presentation is just give the audience what they can already see on the screen or just read to them what they could read on paper themselves. It's a different kind of genre. It is a different format of presenting information, so you should think of it as that. And of course, when you give them that, you shouldn't work your way into it. Tell them exactly what it is. It's the final week of the course. This is a presentation about why you shouldn't cheat. This is a idea about how we can move forward in our business proposal, whatever it is. Practice going through it. If you aren't certain exactly where everything is, if you don't know where the slides are, there's always going to be a moment. You know this for a fact. You could have stand-up cards, you could have slides, you could be drawing on a whiteboard, and there's always going to be an error, there's going to be a mistake. Now, those are okay as long as it looks like it is an ordinary glitch. If it looks like you don't know what's coming next, you weren't prepared for it, you didn't think it through, or everything's out of order for some reason, that doesn't look good. And it looks like you didn't put in the time in advance. So always try to give yourself time to rehearse, go through it, click through the PowerPoint or whatever it is you're going to do so that you have an idea what's coming next. When you are speaking, and a lot of people are really scared about speaking, it's the common joke being that more people are scared of death than they are more scared of public speaking than they are of death. So at a funeral, they'd rather be in the coffin than giving the epitaph. And there's some truth to that. A lot of people are worried about this. So have some confidence in that. There's a whole bunch of ways to do that. Have some prepared things. You can ask them a question. You can describe a situation. Find a way to engage with the audience. If you feel comfortable, tell them a joke. If you don't feel comfortable, ask them what they're most concerned about. Give them a reason to care. One of the best ways to get people to not check in is if you seem uncertain, nervous, or you aren't really sure what you're doing there, and therefore you can't explain to them why they're there. Because again, remember, most of these presentations are happening in a situation where people always want to have something else to do. So you want to hold their interest. One thing to do is think how you're speaking. For example, I'm speaking to a microphone, so I'm trying not to be too loud. If I'm standing in front of a room, I want to make certain I can hear my voice off of the back wall. So I'll speak a little bit more forcefully, a little bit more confidently, project to the back of the room. Don't shout, obviously. Don't try to be shrill, but at the same time, make certain that when you are speaking, you sound like you know what you're talking about. And think of the common factors of people who you think of as confident, and what do they do that's similar. So think of those things. Think of the physical factors. You can't see it, but I move my hands a lot when I'm talking, even when I'm talking into a microphone, because it's how I think. Um, that's fine as long as it doesn't look like I don't know what to do with my hands. If I'm using things like grab the ideas out of the air or point to someone or point to a thing, has a direction. They are there for a reason. So consider your physical factors. Stand up straight, chest out, neck straight. Look at the wall. Look at the people's eyes. All of these things can go into the value of a presentation. Think about your aids. Now remember that people don't necessarily need everything blown up for them, but also that they can read it themselves. So if you give them a bullet point list like you have here at the bottom of this page, don't read the list. Don't say, don't include too much information from any one slide. Keep it simple using brief phrases. You can read this. You don't need me to read it to you. So touch on them. For example, say, you don't want to use more than 2 type sizes on any given slide. What that means is you don't want there to be a lot of different focal points, things that can get lost because people are focusing on the 2 main fonts that are there. So if you've got something that's even smaller, they're probably going to miss it, that kind of thing. Use the bullet points as a way to spur further discussion. And so these are all kinds of examples of slides that you've probably seen before and how those sorts of things can work. So remember to think about whether or not you're engaged, whether or not it brings up a good point, brings up what's going on in that point, and gives you a direction to go with. That's what presentations are for. So when you're being asked to do your own slideshow for the end of this week, think about that sort of thing. What is it you're being asked to do, and what are you trying to say? The last thing is proposals. This is useful, but it didn't come up as a relevant thing to teach. Proposals are ways of, I think we should do a thing. For example, you've done a process analysis and you've used the process analysis to convince people that maybe there is something here that needs to be done. Well, then you can use a proposal. Here's what I propose. Let's go through this process. Let's find a way to accomplish this, and I'd like to be in charge of it, or I'd like to see it happen. And so while this is just for your own reading, I think is really worth your checking this out, because if you ever have an idea and you want your bosses to listen to you, this is one of the best ways to go, is going through and understanding proposal format and how to put one together well. All right, so that is the main set of the reading. There are a couple other pieces of advice columns in here, of course. One is a little video telling you how to use active versus passive voice. This one uses things in terms of zombies, and what that means is, you'll see it in the video, is if you can say by zombies, that means it's probably passive. And the reason you want to watch what's active and passive, active voice is always easier and faster to read than passive voice. It feels like somebody's doing something. There's emotion. There is a momentum to the sentences, which helps the reader get through them. So you always try and write active if you can. Some bosses, some companies, and some genres want you to write in a passive way, but even so, you can try to make things active. For example, if you are being asked to write in a way that makes it sound like, these are things that just happened in the business and no one is to blame, that's fine, but you can still write actively. This is an event that took place, not this was what was happening at the time. It just takes a little bit longer. It's a little bit harder to get through. It requires more energy from your audience member. And you want your audience to spend their energy understanding your ideas, not trying to get through your ideas. And of course, then another one is about order of operators. So there is one of these secrets that most people have grown up sort of knowing, but you probably have never had actually identified for you, which is we have a grammatical rule for how modifiers should appear in order. So if you have multiple modifiers, as this shows you, it's got to be in a certain order, or it sounds weird. You can change them up, but that is specifically doing something to the language to draw attention to itself. So just flip through this in case you're curious about it. As a language nerd, I find this sort of thing really interesting, because this helps you understand some of these little tricks so that you can either follow the rules and be well understood or break the rules on purpose and have a little flair to your writing. Another one of these articles, which is obviously clicked on here, is one more advice article on how to write essays. We had some last week while preparing, but this is another one to more general essay advice, how to think about doing things, how to poke holes in things, how to understand what's going on and stuff critically, understand critique, how to critique arguments, how to do preliminary research with Wikipedia. Obviously, you can tell I believe in this article because I've given you many of these pieces of advice. Read in a focused way. And the introduction is really important. And I think I've mentioned this before, but I want to reemphasize it. Introductions aren't supposed to ask permission. They're supposed to tell you what you're talking about. And one thing I've noticed while grading the cause and effect essays is that there has been a little bit of trying to work up to why people should do these things and what that means and how they should, and whether or not you are allowed to speak. And you are allowed to speak. I specifically want you to speak, so do that. So these are the assignments for the week, and you can see these all in here. First of all is the feedback log and analysis. You should have started this a couple weeks ago, and now here is the final form. Go through all of the feedback you've received, and you will be getting the cause and effect essays back probably later today on Monday, and then you will be able to look at all of the essays up to that point and respond to them. And what I'm asking you for is your 5 most common errors. So some of you have already done 5, some of you just did 1. You need to do all 5 and make sure your errors are good. Double check what you've already handed in, see if you need to update it. If you've already done it all, then you got your work done early. If you haven't done it all, then now's the time to do it. And so this is for that, which will also tie into revised essays. So you're going to revise one of your essays, either process analysis or cause and effect. And you can use your feedback log to help you pay attention to it. You also notice I do a lot of marginal comments on your essays to help guide you as well. And so don't just follow my advice. Think about what I've said and whether or not this is proper. And then you will revise an essay and submit it in the assignment link. And of course, put the word revised in the title of your essay when you save it, so I can be certain you didn't just re-upload your essay. Also, there is one more message board. This is Final Course Reflections. This, obviously you're not doing responses. You're just doing your original post. You're welcome to respond to each other, but they're not going to be graded as weekly responses. But I will make certain to rank them from 1 through 20, not just 1 through 10, so that you'll get full points for this. And mostly what I'm wanting for from this is you to think about how you work. How did your writing process change, or did it or where are you still seeing problems? Which kind of writing works best for you, and what did you discover about yourself as a writer? And so that is mostly what I'm interested in, because I will be looking at these reflections in ways to tweak the next course I'm teaching in this subject. Obviously, the big assignment due is the argumentation essay. Again, 1,000 to 1,250 words, 4 to 5 pages in length, 3 credible sources. You should have all the prep work done already, obviously. And so you can go through and do all of this. If you need to turn in this essay late, because there has to be a fairly tight turnaround on grading, please let me know as soon as you can, and I will probably not let anybody turn anything later than a week from Monday. So you can probably get a day extension if you need it. 2 days extension is going to be pushing it. If it's a really big deal, have a conversation with me about that. And of course, I always suggest that you read the prompt, just in case there's a little bit of information different in the prompt, or I've expanded on one of these ideas. And the argumentation rubric is also worth looking at, because it helps. Obviously, I use it as a guide to my grading, and helps you understand what I'm looking for. And finally is the demonstration and learning. So what you're going to do is take what you studied for the argumentation essay, Don't worry about it. Or you can do the process analysis cause effect, whichever you want, whichever you feel most comfortable with that topic, and put some information together. And I would like you to not just do bullet points from your essay. I'd like you to find some images, some graphs, whatever. Look at your sources. Your sources should have plenty of this kind of thing in it to help show that you know that you have learned something and you could convert it to another genre and explain to people using the presentation style. And so this is, give me about 10 to 15 slides. If it's 8 or 9 slides, I'm not going to care that much. If it's 5 slides, that's not enough. Don't go over 15 if you can help it, because more than 15 slides is just a bad idea anyway, in general. If you have any questions about any of these assignments or the readings, as always, you're welcome to shoot me an email, and I will talk to you later. Thank you. Bye.